So I've got an awl here. Primitively, you would use, bone, antler, rock, a thorn, right? Depending on the material you're trying to work. So I'm going to hand sew this because I don't have an industrial strength leather sewing machine. And what I have to do is with this particular one, which is shaped in a pointed oval, kind of a spear tip, I don't want to go through. If it happens, it happens. It's all right, because this is not particularly thick like I wanted or it should, but this is what I have at the moment. So I need to go at an angle, about a 45-degree angle, so I can come out the side of this plane. All right, so the stitches need to come out the side, not underneath. Okay, if it happens, it happens. Especially on this project, because I'm going to be covering with rubber. Okay, so I'm going to make the holes first with this oval pointed awl. To help my sewing, stitching, I'm going to use another awl that's more straight to make the holes wider as I go. That's kind of when you do primitive stitching like this, you got to make the holes first, and then you got to thread your needle through. It's kind of a tedious and time-consuming process. Again, if you're sitting in your wigwam, your teepee, your igloo, your wiki up, whatever, Quincy, and you're sitting around the fire telling stories, this is something you can do to pass the time, right? At least that's what our ancestors would do, and people still do today. And then you can be very particular. The thread material would be sinew, cordage of strong, plant fibers, other buckskin, other types of cured animal hides or tanned animal hides, as your lashings, right? That's a whole nother subject in and of itself. This whole Aboriginal sewing and that deserves its own sort of topic. But I need to explain this in depth so it can be understood, at least for this video, right? So what I want to do is I'm taking because I'm on a cutting board surface here. I don't want to dig into this, and I don't want to blunt my blade tip. Again, I'm double checking, measure twice, cut once, that this is the side that I want out. And I'm going to start, and I don't want to wet this leather, because in some previous videos, if you've seen me do some leather work, I wet it. Well, the vegetan leather, when you do that, even buckskin, when you do that, it gets stretchy. You'll misshape it. So we have to work it dry. Therefore, we're going to have to punch the holes first. So I'm using this backstop of another piece of leather, and I'm going to just take my time, and about 1/8 of an inch apart, about of 1/4 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch in from the edge, all the way around. And again, I'm not going to take you through that journey because I think I've talked enough, but I want to just get just enough in and make an edge out. Okay, so this was kind of my first hole here. Okay, like that. And then if I take my other tool, once I've done this all the way around, you can see what I'm doing here, right? So then when I add my welt and other pieces, I can just hold these or clamp these pieces together, and I can do my sewing because I have a particular needle. Now, for this type of thing, I would probably, with this type of leather, if I didn't have metal tools, or if I didn't have the needle that I have, if I was working with bone or antler needle, I probably most likely would have to make holes with my awl too, just so it passes through. Again, this is tedious, meticulous, it takes time. You put on a audio book or watch a documentary, or kind of watch a documentary while you're doing this. Okay, not fast. So I will begin the process and just kind of start making my holes. So I'm coming to the end of my first round of awling the sole at an angle, 45 degrees, about an eighth inch in. And to be honest, I would probably, especially around the toe, because oftentimes, you know, the heel, yeah, people walk on their heels. So you might want to come in a little in from the edge and the heel because they're going to stress. But that's people that walk in the city in regular shoes, right? Those people that walk in the forest, hunters, you know, campers, trackers, we tend to walk on our toes, and in order to be more quiet in the forest, you're doing a toe heel thing. So a lot of the stress is going to be here. I'm not too concerned about it because, again, I'm going to we're putting a welt in to reinforce the stitching and to protect the stitching, but also I'm going to be putting a rubber sole on it. So again, finally, as I'm closing this up, I just want to come down and I'm jabbing this in. Now, again, you don't want to do this on your good table in the kitchen because you might mess it up. And so I have another piece of leather as a background, so I can, as a backstop, so that I can make these jabs and not hurt the surface that I'm working on. So next, I would change to this one. Oopsie daisy, off camera. Sorry, I've zoomed in a little bit. Which is more, you know, this one is more of a kind of an oval shape with a point spear tip, and this is more of a, I don't know, just a straight cylinder tip. And so I can use these to reinforce the holes to help make my stitching easier with my needle when I go through, right? Some of these are kind of weak. I may have to reinforce those. We'll see when we get there. But I can just go back around and help open these holes up, and then I'll know if the hole didn't go all the way through, if I need to make another jab, etc., etc. So this is how we're attaching. We're setting up, making attachments to the sole. So all I have to do is kind of repeat the process on the other foot, the other sole, and then we can start stitching. Okay, as I was opening up these holes, this kind of went through, and that may happen, right? So all I did was I made another hole with my oval shape, my spear tip, and then next to it, or maybe deeper in, and reinforced it, right? That may happen from time to time. I'm eyeballing this, just so you know. So, you know, there's other tools you can use so that your stitching and your holes are exactly, you know, however many, they're precise. I'm eyeballing this. That kind of stuff will happen. Trust me, the leather will hold. And again, we're going to seal it with rubber, so it's not going to be that big of a deal. So, I've finished both feet, left and right. And again, awling. You know, I'm using an oval because this spear tip actually penetrates faster, better. And then this cylinder tip actually, you know, widens it and makes it easier to sew through. And so I did it for both sides here. I have my welt that's going to be placed around, you know, plus a little bit extra. The welt itself should, you know, be the circumference of your foot or your sole plus some extra. I will deal with that later. And then note on the boot that I made before, you know, I want something to hold on to the lacing, all right? The thongs that are going to go up around your ankle. When I made mucklucks, they were more the thongs were thick enough to where they sat in the back and sewed in. I'm going to repeat this because I think it's kind of effective. So that means when I cut out my pattern, the middle part of the pattern for the instep here would make perfect pieces, and that's just another piece I'm going to cut out and use my hole punch so that there's a hole already. And then when I put everything together, you know, I'm going to place them on my foot or my sole, you know, appropriately, you know, right and left, you know, and then, you know, when I put my sole on, blah 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 blah, you know. So there's a hole, and then there's the upper, you know, that has to go on, you know, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of layers that I'm gonna have to punch through. Again, that's why this is not like without a machine. This is why it's not a easy process, right? And me, I'm the type of person, if you encounter me on the street or you see me wearing something that, you know, might be interesting to you, and you're like, oh, you know, how much would it take to make, you know, kind of, it would be cheaper for me to teach you, to pay me to teach you how to do it, than for me to sit here and do it, right? And then I get to share knowledge. That's the whole point, the purpose of this YouTube channel is free knowledge, right? Yeah, I would like a little bit of a donation from time to time, because some of the knowledge I actually have to pay for and then regurgitate. Yeah, I digress. That's just the reason why. Okay, so YouTube is free. You're getting free knowledge. I use YouTube. I try to shout out my resources when I can, as well. But anyways, this is time consuming. It's not something, you know, that you can just stamp and make out, you know, and you know, make it for cheap, right? So that's why, you know, when people ask me, oh, can you make, you know, oh, I want a basket like your carry basket, like your carry basket, you know, how much? I'm like, yeah, you're gonna get sticker shock. You're gonna wince if I have to make it. If I have to harvest it and put it together and make it for you, you're not gonna like it. But I'd much rather do it and teach you for free, or not free, cheaper than it would cost me to make it for you. Then you could pass on the knowledge to somebody else. That's my idea and the whole purpose of me making this channel, yet I digress. Anyways, I've punched through the hole, punched the holes at a 45-degree angle all around the soles. So now I can get to the next step, which is attaching the uppers to the sole. Okay, here I have the lacing loops, which are similar to what I've attached to this boot here. Again, the lacings you can attach to the back. They can actually be sewn in and, you know, wiped around if they're thick enough, wide enough. I'm gonna do it this way, and let's see here. So this is actually my welt. Set this aside, and so, you know, I've more or less made these. I didn't make them completely identical. They're not exact. They're approximate because it's black on black. Nobody's really gonna see them, you know, unless you're really like down there at my feet looking at it. So I want to take my hole puncher, and I'm taking a pretty big one. I'm gonna go in probably about, you know, 5/8 of an inch or so, and just punch a hole. And this will be the beginning of where the lacing will come through. And again, the lacing may be wider or thinner by the time we're done with this, but at least we have the hole and it's consistent in each one of these. So I just want to give you this little tidbit, especially at least the style that I'm making. Again, there's many ways to do this, and the upper part of it, to lace it, the way the Plains natives have done it, and what I've seen are absolutely stunning and very beautiful. I'm not to that level yet. I really haven't reverse engineered it to that degree. I want this boot to be more or less rustic and, you know, at least a decent looking covering, right? You know, making artwork is different than making something functional. That's a whole nother conversation, because as human beings, in my amateur studies of anthropology and things like that, you know, as long as it's functional, you know, it's got a pointy end, and you get an animal when you're hungry, and now that your family's fed, you're fed over the campfire, now you can start, now you have the energy and the mindset to really polish up and make your weapon beautiful, your clothing beautiful. But when you're at a point of desperation or starvation, as long as it freaking works. And me personally, I'm on the spectrum of, you know, as long as it freaking works, to, you know, I'll put a little artistry in there depending, especially for these videos. But at the end of the day, you know, out in the field, as long as it works, it doesn't have to be pretty, as long as it works. Alright, so let's stitch the upper to the bottom plus the welt, and we also have to remember to include our loops, our loop holders, I should say, our tong or lacing holders here. So we've already taken the time to put in the holes here on the sole, and then the whole key of it all is making sure, because there are sides, right? Shiny side, shiny side, shiny side, and then when it's undone, everything looks the way you want it to do. All right, it's going to flip properly. So things are matched accordingly, and for now I'm going to have to hold these together. There is a more elegant way, and I think when I redo this video I'll show you the elegant way to do this, but I have my S needle, and it's, as you can see, it's quite formidable. It'll punch through most any of this type of leather with artificial sinew as the thread, and I've doubled it up. I've doubled it up because this sole is not the thickest. So what I have to do now is, I just want to give you a gist, is I've kind of put things on their middle parts, and so all I'm going to do is about 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch in, is kind of punch in the thread and then go through the hole here, which should hopefully go through the center. And if that doesn't work out, then I have my awl here to help make the hole bigger, right? And so again, I pull this through, and I just made a knot at the other end of it. There's a more elegant way to do this, to where you can stitch on one side and then stitch on the other. I'm going to keep it easy and just stitch one side, and so again, when I go through another stitch, I need to match the neighboring hole here, right? So I want to stitch through both my upper and my welting, and then go through that hole, right, like so. And these needles, these S needles are awesome for this type of work. Primitively, you would have to use an awl to make holes through all layers of your leather. And you know, it's just tedious work. You know, again, you sit by the fireside, you tell stories, you listen to people telling stories. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm actually, you know, watching a movie while I'm doing this, or watching a documentary, and before you know it, the time flies and you finish. But you just have to pay attention to what you're doing. Trying to make sure I'm getting through both of these layers, the upper and the welt, and then going through the next neighboring hole in the sole, like we punched through before. If you break a hole in the sole, excuse me for bumping the camera, then you just make another hole adjacent to it or above it or below it, and each one of these I kind of cinch up. So it's kind of hard to do this on camera because I'm doing this by myself, in the house. I don't have an extra camera person, I don't have a proper camera and lighting, blah blah blah, but hopefully you're getting the concept. This is not something that's too terribly difficult. It takes patience, and it takes patience and attention. Otherwise you might lose where you're at, right? So I want to get through the welt. I'm into the welt. Now I want to find the next hole and get through the sole, like that. And so I'm just going to do this all the way around. When we come through the lashing holders, that's when we'll, you know, I'll kind of stop what I'm doing, and we'll revisit that process. It's not that different, it's just that now we got 4 layers versus 3. Alright, so we're at a position where I'm going to add the lacing holder here. And again, there's a shiny side and a suede side or a flesh side that when this is flipped over, when it's turned inside out, the shiny side should be visible. So now that I've stitched pretty much along this side, I need to make an addition, and I haven't measured anything. I'm kind of eyeballing it. Again, it's kind of a rustic feel, so precision is not necessarily a priority. Symmetry isn't necessarily a priority, but this is what I'm adding now. So I'm going to take, and this is why these needles are so cool, is now I can go through these 3 layers with my needle, and I'm kind of doing this on camera. I've only gone through 2 layers at this point, which is fine, because that's actually beneficial. So I can go through that layer and then catch the very end of this, and then I might be able to catch it. Let me stick, it slipped on me, that's fine. So I might be able to catch it through the actual hole itself. I'm trying to keep everything on camera, sorry. Again, I'm a one-man operation, so that's just what it is. So now that I've got this, I want to make sure that's in here. I want to find the next available hole in the sole and go through that. Right. So then I can take my needle. So I've gone through the upper, the welt, and the thong keeper, and that's going to tie this in, and all I have to do is just make sure I do that for the next 2 or 3 stitches as I line everything up to go through. And then all I have to do is when I hit the other side, I would take my other keeper and just align them and do the same thing on the way back up the other side of the sole. So I finished one side, and you know, I've done this so many times, I'm kind of eyeballing it, it's not exactly precise. So what's going to happen is I have to do this side, and the way that this technically should be done is, you know, again, everything should meet in the exact back middle of it. Normally you can do this with one piece of thread. I'm doubling it up, and with one needle. And there's a way to do that. I will hopefully soon redo that. Well, do another version of this video for the plain style moccasins, plain style Native American moccasin style. And but this is kind of, you know, I won't say quick and dirty, but it's kind of a more quick version of it. So I have to still put in my other lashing keeper about here, but I've got another needle, so I've got two needles. Now if I had one needle, you know, that would be one thing, right? But I got two needles, so I'm gonna thread this needle and come up, or start threading, starting with this hole around this side. And then when I come to the point of the lashing holder, I'll just match those and thread that in, and I will meet at the back, and then we'll just stitch up the back side, and we'll at least have the upper attached to the sole. Okay, so here is the left side already done. I already did the right one. I already sewn and stitched through the upper to the sole, and I'm about to stitch up the back. And if this is done correctly, these should meet, like, you know, properly, and it's okay. Leather stretches. This didn't happen to meet like that, but it should be okay. Now before I turn it inside out. Now to be honest with you, if you want to make a quick and dirty shoe, this is how you would do it, right? And as long as you have a protective bottom, especially if you're making a model, you know, if you want to make a model, make sure things fit approximately, then you can do it that way. But if you want to make a quick and dirty shoe with a hard bottom, you just do the stitching like that. I've seen many what we call house shoes look like that at stores and stuff. And it's not meant for outdoor use. It's not meant for rugged use. It's just meant for being around the house, real quick and dirty, real easy, relatively speaking. But this is going to be turned inside out, but it's the left side. Because it's left side, it's shaping of my right foot, right? And I know that my feet personally are more symmetrical. So my right foot is slightly, just like by 1/8 of an inch, maybe larger than my left. But if it fits my right, it's gonna fit my left, right? So I haven't finished off the back, right, which is another deal. But we're gonna try and shoehorn this in just to make sure things fit, because at this stage I should be able to correct some mistakes if I need to. So, you know, it slid in pretty well. And then I want to take my my colored pencil and kind of give a mark as to about where I should be stitching up, right? And I can do it on either side. And because I may be wearing socks with these or something like that, I want to give myself plenty of room, and that's the way these are designed. They're not completely tight and form-fitting. They're actually designed to have some a little extra give in case I've got some socks or something like that. So what I've got to do next is I'm going to take my marks that I have here. And again, the welt is there. I can lay the welt down and cut that out, right? And then on this side, which is where this is the shorter side, so I'm gonna go with that. I don't want to go with the longer side because I may miscut. But I made a divot here, and I can take and just kind of give a line of me taking my stitches, and I'm using two needles in this particular instance. Take one needle and just do a chain stitch all the way up, and then, you know, trim the rest of it. But I need to secure, I got 1 or 2 stitches here at the back of the heel that needs to be done before I start doing that, but I wanted to mark this off. But it fits on my right foot, which I know it'll fit on my left. Again, if you have significantly different sized feet, then you have to make sure that you have to double check the sizes or your fitting, for your feet or your body, whether it be anything, shoes, gauntlets, gloves, bras, whatever, brassieres, whatever. So anyways, we've gotten this far. So far so good. It looks pretty good. Here is the right one that I've been wearing to kind of shape it out, so it actually looks pretty good. I just haven't trimmed it, and some of the stitching you can see, which is fine. I'll cover that up with some dye, and later, like I said, some rubber sole. But this is what we're trying to get at on the left side. So I'm at the back, or the heel, where we're going to do some trimming, but I'm just doing a chain stitch to finish this off. And I'm just going to go kind of over the top and through an existing hole just to finish this off. It's pretty secure stitch. And then I'll just kind of go underneath that lacing there like that. And I may do it twice, and that's where I'm going to make my knot. That's where everything's going to be secured. Okay, so then I can take my shears, and always when I cut I'm always giving myself a little bit, because this is when I'm working with I'm not working with natural fibers, so this is actually nylon, wax nylon, so it may slip. So if you cut too close to the knot, your knot may come undone under stress because it's going to slip. So give yourself a little bit of room. Now that I've got my little chain stitch, I've got my other piece here, I got my welt, because again I was using 2 needles in this particular project here, so I can get rid of that needle. I can free that needle, and then I can trim this welt. And normally they cross, but I didn't measure things or make them actually correct. It's symmetrical, so that's why we've got a little bit of this going on here, and that's fine. A little bit of crossover, as long as it fits and it looks right. And again, leather is beautiful material to work with because it will stretch with your body. So right now I'm just trimming this, and that can be used as a remnant or something else, about a 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch. And then I could put this on my foot again to make sure that it fits now that it's fastened together, and also to help stretch out the leather, right? There. So again, everything's going to adjust because it's leather. Everything's going to adjust, and it's going to stretch. So I'm not concerned about the little bit of kind of working my foot in there, right? And this is just for my right foot, so I already know that it's going to fit on my left foot. It's not too much of a difference in size, like I mentioned before, but it's just the first time. You kind of got to work it in there. New shoes, we all know that feeling, right? So anyways, now we have to flip this inside out. So what I'm thinking is, next time I'm probably going to sew in a tong, because the toe, especially when you have a hard sole, and I'm using maybe like 3 or 4 ounce leather for the sole. If it was thicker, like 8, I would have to wet it because it gets real tough to turn this inside out. But we're gonna get there. I'm gonna do this mostly off camera, but the whole point is to get it to look like this one, which is my right. I have to kind of start, you know, working it so that it starts to be turned inside out. So far, you know, these work. I gotta make some adjustments. I'm gonna wear these like this for a while without adding the uppers, just so that the leather can shape to my feet. If the soles were more hard or heavier weight, they would also help shape as well. So I'll walk around in these a little bit. Even right now, they're perfunctory pieces to protect your feet. It's thin leather I'm using, so you know it'll work out. But we're not done yet. And yeah, I mean, I think that they'll work. When it's all said and done, they'll look all right.